Hi everyone, thanks for being here today. I am Candace Porter, and today I'm going to provide an introduction to Smartsheet. This is going to be very helpful if you're a beginner or maybe you're seeing Smartsheet for the very first time. This is also a great video to share with other people on your team or within your organization that may need introduced to Smartsheet for the first time. Thank you for being here with me today. If you would like, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe by clicking on the bell below. This channel is about all things project management, and Smartsheet just happens to be one of our favorite tools. We are not affiliated with Smartsheet in any way, other than really appreciating it as a project management and a productivity tool. So let's dive in. I am currently logged in to Smartsheet, and I am a licensed user on the business plan. I just want to set expectations. If you are not a licensed user, or maybe you're in a free trial, things may look and feel a little bit different than what you're going to see on my screen today. This is the landing page for Smartsheet, also called the home page. As you start to use the tool more and more, it's going to suggest certain things for you. So this is our suggested for you screen where you can tell that I've been working in a team task list lately and team branding lately. So you can really just get things at quick click when you first log into the tool. A couple of other things on this page that I'll point out. This little microphone up here, send us feedback if there's any features, things that you like or don't like. Smartsheet's really good at listening, so that's a great thing if you want to send any feedback. I also want to highlight that this Smartsheet logo is clickable, and it's going to be a shortcut to take you to your sheets and workspaces. So I'm going to click on that right now, and it automatically takes me to my browse, where I can see information here on the left-hand side. And it actually took me directly into the most recent workspace that I was working in. I'm going to go through all of this information, starting with down the left-hand side. There's some really important options here, and I want you to understand what they are. So again, the Smartsheet logo from the previous suggested for you page brings you to the browse, which is your sheets that have been shared with you and the workspaces that have been shared to you, or maybe you own them. Starting at the top, this little home is the home page, so it takes you right back to that suggested for you. Just below that is a bell. That is going to be where we could see all of our notifications. I currently don't have any, which is a good thing, which means I'm totally caught up. So if someone is providing a comment and they're tagging me in it in any of the sheets that we're working on, it will most likely show up as a notification as long as you have that enabled, which we're going to take a look at shortly in the settings. It will also notify you if maybe someone has shared a new sheet with you or a new workspace. So this is always a really great place to start when you're looking for a Smartsheet asset, is what we'll call it, where someone has shared something with you. Down below that is Browse. This is going to look very familiar because, again, this is where you select your workspaces and the sheets. It's the one that looks like a folder over here on the left-hand side. Below that is Recents. If you click on Recents, it is going to show you what you have recently opened. So if you were just working on a sheet and maybe you logged out of Smartsheet and you went and did something else and you want to come right back in, you could click on your Recents and select the Smartsheet from that section. You can also favorite something, and that's what this little star is. So if you're looking here, this is within my 2024 June Rocks workspace. I have a couple of things in here, my team task list and a training project. If I want to favorite something, I could just click on that little star. It turns it yellow. And now when I click on the favorites over here, my team task list will show up here. So if you're working on a project and you're in several different sheets throughout the day, then you could go ahead and favorite them and that will show up here. Just below that is work apps. That's what it's called, work apps. And when we're talking about work app, we're going to keep this very simple since this is an intro video. So it's a customizable, it's a no-code application where you could centralize various Smartsheet assets, so sheets, reports, dashboards, and so forth into a single interface. We're not going to be working with that today, but if that piques your interest, you might want to do a little bit of research on Work App is what it's called. Down below that, this little plus sign is one of my favorites because if you click on that, it's going to give you a lot of different free templates that you can work with. And if you're looking for a specific sheet template, go ahead and come to the templates, maybe give it a search. I'm going to look for something marketing. Click enter, and you will see where there's a lot of different assets out here that I can explore. Marketing budget management, marketing campaign management, marketing prioritization and alignment. Again, that is the plus sign here. It will then take you to Smartsheet templates that have already been built and are shared. And you can enter what you're looking for in this box here and then have fun exploring. Down below that is something called Launcher. It looks like a bunch of small boxes here. This is also where you can launch your work apps. And if you are beginning to get more and more advanced in Smartsheet, there's some other options that could come up for you at that point. However, we are not going to be working with that today. But no, if you start to work with work apps, Launcher is one of the places you can go. The other place up here, it looks like the 4 little diamonds together and it says work apps. Down below the launcher is an option for help. If you need support, there's an option here for find articles and answers, and then Smartsheet University. Smartsheet University is really their training environment. So if you want to go out there and really learn about different things within Smartsheet, that's a great option. Last but certainly not least on this left-hand bar is where your account is located. It's got a K for my name, which is Candace. And when you click on that, it's going to give you different options here. You can take a look at your plan information, group management. So a group would be if you're working in Smartsheet, maybe you're in a very large organization and you're on different projects and all of the projects are using Smartsheet. Someone could set up your project team as a group. You have to have administrative rights to do that. And you could go to group management and take a look at that. We're not going to go into too much detail there. What we are going to go into detail on is the personal settings. So the option third from the bottom, if you click on that, it's going to have some information here about you. And then if you go to settings, this is where you want to make sure that everything's aligns with your expectations and what you want it to. Here, I love the autosave option, and I want it to always be autosaving. If you think about how often we're interrupted, I don't want this set up as autosave. You could do it 10 minutes if you wanted. I want it every minute so that I don't lose my work. So take a look at your autosave option and select what works for you. Down below that, autosave my changes when I leave a sheet. So if you accidentally click out of a sheet, a report, or a dashboard, do you want it to autosave when you leave? I do. Communication preferences show Smartsheet bulletins and home user education, show what's news screens, send me product update news. So this is where you actually can enable or disable some of the communications from Smartsheet. Time zone, regional preferences here. And then the next one is a really important one too, notifications. I like to be notified in various avenues, when someone has tagged me with a comment or shared a new sheet with me. I showed you one of those options already, which is up here with the bell. However, you can enable email notifications as well, which I appreciate. And then Smartsheet has a fantastic app. If you haven't tried it out on your cell phone yet, I love it. If you try to look at an Excel via email on your phone, it can be really hard to navigate, in my opinion. But Smartsheet makes it easy to pull up a grid and really navigate it. So check out the app if you haven't. I would recommend that. So you can enable or disable depending on if you have a work phone or a personal phone, and if you want to get work notifications or not. You may want to disable some of these. My mobile devices is another one. You could check that out and again, see what's linked to your Smartsheet account. I am not going to go into the apps or the API access. They're a little bit more advanced. Okay, so let's get into a little bit more with the workspace. I'm going to click on Browse, which is again what this little folder is. And when you think of a workspace, think of it as a folder. That's the easiest thing for me to wrap my mind around. And I want you to think about a folder where you would store different Smartsheet assets. And when we start getting into the different views and the types of assets, I think you'll better understand that if you don't already. And this is really where I recommend you store different Smartsheet assets for a group of people and you grant access rights at the workspace level. So you can share sheets with individuals one of two ways. The first one is Workspace. So think of it as I can share a whole folder with Amanda on my team, and we're going to store a lot of different sheets that maybe for one project, or maybe there's a lot of different sheets that are unrelated, but Amanda and I work closely together every day, and we just want one workspace where we both have access rights. That is a best practice, is sharing at workspace level, in my opinion, because when you share at the sheet level, it can get a little bit confusing or messy for people. All of the sheets end up showing up here, and they're not grouped in a logical way. So if you're sharing just one-off sheets with a lot of people, they're all going to show up here versus saying, let's create a project workspace that all of our project team has access to. I will caution you, if you share at the workspace level, it means anyone that is added to that workspace will have access to all of those assets. So be mindful of that. In order to share a workspace, you can go up here where it says share. It is this blue button in the right-hand side, and click share. And you can invite someone to come and join you. So you could type in their email address. You can give them specific rights. So an admin can basically do anything that they want in that workspace. They can invite people, they can delete people, they can modify all of your Smartsheet assets. It's pretty much giving them the keys to the kingdom. Editor, they can also go in and edit specific things. They can share if you select that option, which means invite other people to the workspace. Or you can invite someone as an editor that cannot share. You can also invite someone as a commenter. So you just want them to be able to come in maybe to specific sheets and add comments. Or you can invite someone as a viewer. Maybe you have someone that you want to be able to take a look at your project plan and see what's going on, but they can't modify anything and they can't comment on anything. So this is probably one of the most common places that I get questions from, which is the different access rights. So we will record another video on that because it gets pretty complicated. Smartsheet does have a table where you can go and take a look at what can someone with admin rights do, what can someone with editor can share do, what can someone with editor cannot share do. So that's a really great place to start if you want to better understand the different access levels that you can grant here. So to recap, here within a workspace, you can add Smartsheet assets, which we are getting ready to get into, and you could share with a group of people. To orient you a little bit more, you can also add a comment or view a summary of comments at the workspace level. So I could add some attachments here if I wanted, and I could add comments here. So maybe I want to add something if this is a project team relating to our project. Next to that is also a paperclip, which again, it allows you to upload something. This is a really great feature where you can just drag and drop. I'm going to drag and drop a photo here just to show you. So I currently have it saved on my desktop, and I am just going to click on the photo, drag it on over, and you will see I now have that attachment associated here with the workspace. Going to click close. From there, if I go back and click on the paperclip, I can see that there is an attachment there, and wow, look at that. When I open the attachment, it's a lot of money and a computer. So again, if you have a project workspace and maybe you have a project charter and you want to upload it right there so that as people get invited to the workspace, they could read the project charter because it's an attachment associated with the workspace, it's a great place to have that. Now this create option is what we're going to get into momentarily. This is where you're going to go and create Smartsheet assets, or what we're calling it. So the main assets: grid, task list, project, cards, browse templates. You can import. So if you have an Excel spreadsheet that you've been working with and you love it and you want to import it into Smartsheet, that is an option. I will tell you, there's probably going to be some cleanup associated with that. It's not always as easy as just importing it and having it off and running. Usually you'll have to kind of tailor the columns a little bit and so forth. You can also import from Microsoft Project if you have a project plan. Again, lots of cleanup generally associated with that. Import from Google Sheets, and then some other options here. So know if you have any of these assets, you can import. You can also create a report which is built on top of Sheets. So a sheet is our foundational piece. Think of that as the Excel. And then you could build reports on that to sort and filter and pull in information from one single sheet or multiple sheets. A dashboard then is a visual aspect to where you could insert some, charts. You could put people's names that are on a project team. Again, it's a visual representation of information. We won't go into detail on those. However, we do have some other videos on Smartsheet reports and Smartsheet dashboards if you want to check those out. Within the workspace, you can also create a folder. So maybe you know that you're going to have loads and loads of sheets and you want to organize them. You can create a folder. Be mindful that you cannot grant access rights at a folder level. It's only at the workspace level. So if you create a workspace and you put 5 different folders in there, anyone that you invite to the workspace is going to have access to all 5 of those folders. You cannot set access rights at the folder level. So I'll show you here, test folder, click enter there. If you go into the folder, you could just organize some additional assets there. Okay, before we dive into a few of these different Smartsheet assets, I also want to point out the actions here. So whenever you select actions, it's going to ask you to click on one of these boxes. So what Smartsheet asset do you want to take an action with? I'm going to select Team Task List. And now if I select actions, it's going to give me all of the different options. Maybe I want to duplicate and create a second task list. I could save as new and rename that. I could save as a template. We won't get into that today, but you can create your own custom template based on something that you've created. You could also delete something. You could export to Excel, to PDF, to Google Sheets, and so forth. Know that those options are there. You could also delete something just with this quick trash can button. So if you click on one of these and you want to delete it, there's a quick delete button right there. Let's now go into Team Task List. So Team Task List is something that was set up as a grid. And a grid, think of that as kind of a blank Excel. They're different in many ways, but that is the easiest way for me to remember. So let's go into Team Task List, and this is what a grid looks like. I'm going to go over all of the options along the top here. We are not going to go into a lot of detail on the options down the right-hand side, but just know when you're working within a grid, there's a lot of options along the top, and then there's a lot of options down the right-hand side. First and foremost, we will take a look up here. There is a print button. So if you want to print your actual sheet out, you can select that. You can print to a PDF or an actual printer, and this is where you can work with the different formats that you want to print. Here is the view. I mentioned this was a grid, so we're in grid view. There are a lot of other views that I'll go over shortly. Gantt view, card view, calendar view, and we won't be able to go into Gantt view with this grid because you have to have really specific columns. So I also have a project plan that I'm going to click into. So we'll take a look at that momentarily. Filter. Just like Excel, if you're familiar with Excel, you can filter. And when you click on filter, it's going to ask you to name your filter. So I'm going to name this filter Amanda and show rows that match all conditions. It's going to ask which column I want to filter by. And so I'm going to filter by assigned to, is one of. If you look at this option, you could also change that. Is not one of, is equal to, is not equal to, contains, does not contain, is blank, is not blank. I am going to go to is one of, and it's going to show me that I could select all, blank, current user, Amanda, or this is Cameron. I'm going to select Amanda. I only want to see in this task list tasks that are assigned to Amanda in the Amanda filter. If I click on Share Filter, that will allow the filter to be available to other people that come into this sheet and work with it. So I want to share it. Sounds like a good idea. And then include parent rows. For this particular sheet, we don't have any parent rows. I'll talk about what parent and child relationships mean when we go into the project. However, assigned to is one of Amanda. That is going to filter out any tasks that are on this that are not assigned to Amanda. And there we go. So one of two rows meet filter conditions, and now I'm only seeing Amanda's task. I can change the type of font. It's not as many options as you find in Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, but you have a few that you could choose from. You could also change the size. So what size do you want the font? Very similar to Excel, we've got bold, italics. I can underline something. The S with a line through is strike through. So if I select that, it's going to strike through the text in a specific column or row. I could add background color to a specific cell or row. And so you can find that with this little bucket of paint that looks like it's spilling out. Maybe I want to highlight the department. I can also change the color of the font. is currently black. I could change it to white. I could change it to red. And then the option here, align cell content. There's 2 rows that show up when you click on that. The top row is left align, center align, or right align. The second row is where do you want the text within the cell? Do you want it to align to the top of the cell, to the middle, or to the bottom? When you start getting into wrap text and so forth, that's where it gets important. I always like it to align to the top, so that's generally what I select. Continuing on, when we select wrap text, it is going to wrap text around to fit the width of our column. So if I unselect that for the comments column, you'll see that we're not able to see all of the text here. That's why I always like to wrap text for any of the columns that are going to have a lot of text in it. If I want to clear formats, so maybe I'm going to select this one where we added some color and we also changed the color of the font. If I want to clear, I'm going to select this eraser and it's going to have it go back to the default. If I say, wait, I didn't mean to clear that, I could also go to this undo button. So this undoes the last thing that you did. So if I go to undo, it's going to say, oh, shouldn't want to take off the actual highlighting and change the color. Wait, I did want to do that. I could go to redo as well. So that's what these little arrows kind of back and forth. One is undo and one is redo. Continuing on, this is one thing that I really do love is the highlight changes feature. This, if I enable, is going to highlight changes based on what I tell it to do. So highlight changes in the last hour. You're going to see what's changed in the last hour. Highlight changes from today. Wow, everything's changing. Highlight changes from the last 3 days, 7 days, 30 days, maybe a custom date, or since I last viewed this sheet. That's one that I like to select. So if I log in and it highlights changes since I last accessed this sheet, I can see what Amanda changed or what Cameron changed. So I really like that. You could change it to the color of your liking. So maybe that's a little too bright for you. Maybe you want it to be kind of a purple. So I've now enabled that and it's going to highlight changes since I last viewed this sheet. I'll save that. Don't worry, we're not finished. We have more options when we click on these 3 little dots where it says more. Starting from the left to right here, you can cell link. So basically what this means is I can link a cell in this sheet to a cell in a separate sheet. If someone changes the cell in the other sheet, it updates it here and so forth. This can be really great as you build more and more complex sheets. So that is where you cell link. You can also insert an image. This is one of my favorite features. I love this, and it's actually hard for me to work in Excel now. This allows me to insert a row. So instead of doing the right clicking and all the stuff you have to do in Excel, I can insert 3 or 4 rows very, very quickly, and it adds them to the top here. I can also add a column very quickly by clicking on the insert column. When I insert a column, you will get the option. It's going to ask you what type of column do you want? And maybe I want another date column in here. So I have a due date. Maybe I want a completed date. I want to restrict it to the values and I'll save that. So now I have a completed date. Something else that I really love about this, if I say, I don't want the completed date there, I want it somewhere else in here. You can click on the top here, so left-hand click on your mouse, and you could drag the columns around. So if you click up in this gray area and hold down the mouse, click, you could drag that around. So I just can drag this over to completed. Amanda told me that she finished the invoicing early, and so today it's completed. And then we also set up some conditional formatting, which is one of the things that we're going to look at, where when I click on this, it lines through. So when I click the complete check mark, it lines through. There is a whole video on setting up your first sheet. And so I highly encourage you to go and view that video if you want to see in action setting up your first sheet. So creating your first sheet in Smartsheet is a great video, and it's going to walk you through a lot of that information. Some of the other things that are included in this more option are formulas. So you can sum specific cells. Maybe I have dollar signs. I'm working on a sheet that is tracking finances. You can add formulas in here exactly like you can in Excel, which I love as well. As you could tell, I'm a big fan of Smartsheet, which is why I always like to remind people we're not affiliated with Smartsheet. We don't try to sell licenses or anything. We just like to information share because we love it as a tool. So there's a whole video on formulas that we've got out there. You can do some really advanced things with the formulas. And so know that that's there. There's also some shortcuts here to where you can format your cell with currency, percentage. You can add the thousands format, which display value of cells as a number with a thousands separator. You can scoot the decimal over to the left. You can scoot it over to the right. And then you can also add date format. So as you recall, I just added a date here and I went through adding a new column. You can also click on a cell and make it a date specific format. The last thing that I want to cover, I mentioned it, conditional formatting. It is this table up here that shows some black and gray rows. And this is where you can enter some rules, which is awesome. I have one rule already set up, and you add a new rule by clicking on this add new rule, and it kind of walks you through it. If complete is checked, then apply this format to the entire row. And I selected strike through. That is why I'll close this out. When I click on complete, because that's the column I selected, and click on this, it does a strike through. I love it. Conditional formatting is great. What I want to also point out are the fields over here on the left. So when you look at these options on the far left-hand side, just to the right of the numbered row, there's 4 different options here. One is an attachment. You can attach things that remain associated with the row, which is really great. So maybe I am using this as some type of invoicing system. So we receive invoices, we're responsible for paying them, so we're the accounts payable department. And when an invoice comes in, I add it to a specific row and add some specific information into it and then save it. So that invoice is always associated with the specific row. That's one of the options that I love. The next one is comments. So this is where when you click this section where it says add a comment, it opens a conversations panel and you can leave a comment at the row level. So if there's a specific invoice, I want to tag someone, I can say, hey, Amanda, XYZ about this invoice. And she knows that I'm talking about row 1. You could add a comment at the sheet level. So if I wanted someone to know something specific about this sheet, you could do it at the sheet level. If I want to see all comments in here, just for a quick glance, I can click on all, and I'll see that there's a comment that I left for Amanda specific to row 5, and then any unread. I've read them all, so there's nothing showing up here. I'm going to close that out. In case you're curious, before I close that out, you can actually delete comments in here as well. So if you accidentally type in a comment and then you realize it's not necessary or whatnot, to delete a comment, you click on these three little dots and you can edit it, you can email it, you can print it, or you can delete it. So let's say we left someone a comment in here. They're not a frequent user of Smartsheet. They haven't responded to us. It's been a couple days. I can come out here, I can email comment, pop in their email, and it'll be sent to them via email. Okay, that was our comments here on the left-hand side. Now, this next one is pretty cool. We won't go into detail on this, but add a proof. This is where you can upload a file and invite people to provide comments on it. I'm going to open up our same attachment, just going to drag it over here first. This is another drag and drop. So I'm going to drag that same photo over from my desktop, and it is going to show that it's complete. Now, if I want to invite someone to come and comment on this, say we're working on something marketing together. Hey, Amanda, what do you think of this? I'm going to invite Amanda. And I'm going to send it and say, I'm going to put test proof in here. And I could message her to really come and add comments. So now I'm going to send it. And what Amanda can do is come in here and say, oh, I want to point to something specific because I can tell that something is off with this $100 bill. You must have used AI to generate it. So I'm going to click on that particular spot and then say, bad photo, face is wrong. Now the cool part is that then logs as number 1 as far as the comment, and then I can tell here that this is the area that they're speaking to. So won't go into any more detail than this, but there's a lot of different cool things that you can do up here as far as the different features, but I want you to know that proofing is an option. Last but not least, you'll see this little bell, and you could set a reminder. So if I want to set a reminder for Amanda that invoicing is going to be due on a specific date, I can come out here and I can select who the reminder needs to go to. So I can change my name to Amanda's name and then select the date I want a reminder to go out. And then I can actually type in a message because lots of us get really busy. We may forget why we reminded ourselves in the first place or reminded someone else. So this is a really great tool. So if you're a few weeks out from something, you need a reminder to pop up, great place to do it. What I want to do now is show you a couple of the different views by going back up here and selecting grid view. And when I click it, several different options drop down. There's a timeline view, there's grid view, Gantt view, card view, calendar view. The two that I want to focus on right now are card view and calendar view because I'm going to get into the Gantt view in the project that I'm going to show you momentarily. Card view, if you're familiar with a Kanban board, which typically is set up as flow of work. So maybe you have a column that says not started, in progress, completed. You could set up a card view with that as well in here if that's a way that you're comfortable working versus rows on what appears to be a spreadsheet. So right now, this is organized by urgency. So Amanda has one task that's high level of urgency. If you're working with this card, you could just drag it around. Actually, that should be medium urgency. If I click save, it's going to save that update in the sheet as well. So if I then go to the urgent column, it's going to show that this was downgraded from high to medium. So any changes I make here are also being saved in the grid view that we just worked with. I could also change how this is organized. So maybe I want it to be organized by who it's assigned to. So I've got Amanda here, and then I've got Cameron here. Remember, we have a filter on. We have the Amanda filter on. If I turn the filter off, I could see any of the tasks that were assigned to Cameron, but currently Cameron doesn't have any of the tasks that meet the criteria. I could add additional lanes as well. So if I wanted to add more contacts to this, I could click add lane. Maybe we got a new team member and we want them to have their own lane. So know that this is the card view. It's more of the view where it's one card, we'll call it, which is equivalent to one row within the grid. I now am going to go into calendar view, which is the bottom option when we go to view. And this option actually shows up in calendar view with anywhere that there is a date. So if I click on this one, you'll see that this is the invoice task. And it's open finance. It was downgraded to that medium level of urgency. And it's showing up on 6/27 because of the due date. So know that there's also calendar view, and you could change different options up here. We won't go into those today, but you can give it some direction in calendar view. I am now going to go back to our main workspace because I want to show you another Smartsheet asset, which is a Smartsheet project. I'm back in my 2024 June Rocks workspace, and we just went through the team task list. We are now going to go through the training project. Now, the difference here is the team task list is set up as a grid. This option here for project basically means that it is a default type of settings that are set up and are best used if you are creating a project that you want to use dependencies on. So let's take a look at training project. These are all, again, default settings as far as the columns. So anytime that you select project, it should have task name, duration, which defaults to the number of days that it's going to take, and those are work days. It also has start, finish, predecessors, which basically allows us to logically link our tasks together. If we say task 1 has to be completed before task 2, and that's going to help us drive the dates accordingly. We have assigned to column, percent allocation, percent complete, and then status of that particular row and comments. I am not going to go into too many details on this because there's an entirely separate video on using Smartsheet for managing your projects where we do go into a lot of details. What I do want to point out that we didn't go through in the previous task list is the parent-child task relationship. So basically, when we're talking parent-child relationship, we're talking a hierarchy. And you can see here that row 1 is a hierarchy. This is called a parent relationship. All of the tasks or deliverables that fall below that are called child. So for example, the outline grouping are child task to decision-making training. Same with the slides and the recording. Those are all child tasks to decision-making training. So when we're looking at this through the eyes of a project manager, this is our work breakdown structure. It would be our level 1, our level 2, our level 3, and so forth. So we can actually condense it to our level 1. If we click on the plus sign then, we could also condense it to our level 2 by clicking on the plus or minus here. So if we only want to see our level 2, which are our deliverables, And then maybe we only want to get to the task level for the slides so that we can focus in on that. It just makes a lot of information easier on the eyes if we're focusing in on what's most important when we're going through maybe schedule updates or so forth. Another quick way of doing this, if you click on these three little dots, you can expand all or collapse all. So if we go to collapse all, again, it takes us back to level 1, and then they're all going to be collapsed, so we would have to uncollapse all of them. If we want to expand all, the exact opposite, it's going to show us the lowest level of those parent-child tasks. One more thing that I'll show you within the project section. If you switch to Gantt view, and Gantt is actually the person's last name that came up with this view, so it's not an acronym for anything, but it basically shows you the flow of work. So our Gantt view over here shows the beginning and the end of our overall project, which is creating a decision-making training. And then it shows us the flow for each of the deliverables, and it shows us our relationships or predecessor, which means a task must come first, and our successor task, which means they follow. Along the top here are the timelines, and it defaults to weeks. And then it's going to show us the flow of work over time. That's our Gantt view. You must be in Gantt view to update project settings. So if you're looking for project settings, hey, maybe it's defaulting to a 5-day work week because our duration is only taking into consideration work days. So if it's defaulting to a 5-day work week and you're actually on a 6-day work week, or maybe you're on a 4-day work week, you need to update the project settings, and you can only find that in Gantt view. So switch to Gantt view in your project, and then you'll see some new options that show up here. We are not going to talk about baselines or critical path right now because, again, separate video. But the little cog here, which is edit project settings, that's really important. This is where you would go to update your dependency settings. And when we're talking dependencies, we're talking it allows for predecessor, successor task. You can turn that on, turn that off. It shows your working days. It shows how many hours in a day you typically work, and you can enter non-working days. So if there's specific holidays your organization has off, you can go in there and edit them so the project schedule is reflective of your actual work days. There's also Gantt timescale settings. I told you it's defaulting to weeks right now. Those are the timelines along the top. You could change that to look a little bit different. Maybe you want it to be months or quarters or years. If you have a multi-year project, maybe you can't have it at weeks because it's going to be way too much information. So you can adjust those in the Gantt timescale settings. And then resource management. Again, this is an entirely different video and a series of videos at that. But if you're wanting to use Smartsheet to help you better utilize resources, human resources, we need to know when someone is available to work on this project because we have their time allocated against all of the different projects within Smartsheet. This is where you could come and you could set this up. So you could set it up resource management by Smartsheet, set it up legacy resource management, and so forth. With that, I am going to yet again go back to the workspace. We are finished talking about the Gantt view, the grid view, the calendar view, the card view. So let's go back to our workspaces by clicking on Browse, and it's going to take me back to the 2024 June Rocks. I'm just going to remind you that Create is where we want to go to create new Smartsheet assets within this workspace. And what we haven't talked about are reports or dashboards. However, know that this is where you'd go to set up a report or a dashboard within the workspace. Again, separate video for those. But I hope that you have taken away a solid understanding of Smartsheet, what the tool is, what the tool can do. A couple of additional tidbits that we're not going to go into detail on, but they are important. I clicked back into my team task list. It defaulted to the calendar view since that was the last one that we were in. I prefer to look at it in grid view. Know that you can build automation in. And this is where you can get really complex by enabling automation and telling it what to do. So for example, I could set up a workflow. When Amanda marks this task as complete, then we need to notify someone else. Workflows can be really, really great when you're getting into more advanced sheets, or maybe you're establishing a project management office or an entire system for managing your contracts. Workflow can notify someone that something's happened and now it's their turn to do something. So workflows exist, they're important, and as you get more comfortable with Smartsheet, just know that you can really enable that and turn that on. The other thing that I do want to point out, because I think it's really, really helpful, again, we did not go through all of the options down the right-hand side here. However, one of my favorite is the publish option. If you click on publish, what you can do is allow someone to review your team task list without even having a Smartsheet account set up. So this is especially helpful. You can publish reports, you can publish dashboards, you can publish sheets, especially helpful for maybe a senior leader where you want them to have insight into something, but you know that they're not going to maybe set up a Smartsheet account because you want to make it easy for them. And so I want to give them a read-only option. And I won't go through all of the options here, but I want them to have a read-only option where they can't add comments and they can't view actual attachments. But all I have to do is click publish link, and this link is something I can email to them. And I'll show you what it looks like on their end. I'm going to open a separate tab and copy and paste that link in there. And this is exactly what they'd see. They would see a view only to all of the information in that particular sheet. And so they don't have any ability to change anything, to comment on anything, to see the attachments that we put there. But I think that this is great to know. It can be really, really helpful depending on the type of information that you want to share with others that may not be worth inviting to kind of the workspace itself. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know that this was a longer video. I hope it was helpful for you. If you have some questions, please add them in the comments below. This channel is all things project management. Smartsheet happens to be one of the tools that we really love. So I hope that this was a helpful introduction. There's a lot more elaborate things that we cover in some of our other Smartsheet videos. So once you feel comfortable, you've got the lay of the land as far as the introduction video, and you're feeling really good about using Smartsheet, check out some of our other videos. Some of them I commented on throughout this video, and you can just take a look at our channel and please subscribe. Thank you again for joining me today. I'm Candace Porter.